Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to talk about why Nintendo didn't include a DS slot on the Switch. It would have been absolutely fantastic to have a new console like the Switch or the Switch Lite that also could play DS games, and I mean DS games properly, not ported over to eShop or Virtual Console or whatever it is these days. And it's one of the reasons I don't own a Switch or a Switch Lite, and why I have no interest at present in upgrading. As you know, I'm a massive fan of the DS, got multiple consoles, just bought a new 3DS XL, and for the price I paid for the new 3DS XL, I could have got a Switch or a Switch Lite, but I didn't. I went for another 3DS, and some of that is because I've got a huge collection of DS games and 3DS games which can all play on my new 3DS XL. It can play all my DS games, it can play all my 3DS games, it can even play my new 3DS games. And if I was to move to a Switch, I'd be starting again. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave my beloved game collection behind. It was great when the 3DS came out, because it could play DS games, and it's a fantastic idea that if Nintendo had included a DS cartridge slot on the Switch, it would be amazing. You're talking, DS came out in 2004, the original DS is going to be 18 years old this year, so you're talking a console that could span 3 generations of games, and as far as I'm aware, that's not been done before. There's always been backward compatibility with certain systems, either directly, like the 3DS could play DS games, or via some sort of converter. So with the Sega Mega Drive, you've got the Master System converter that you could play Master System games on. And I get, in a way, why Nintendo wanted to move forward. The Switch is their home console, the Switch Lite is a successor to the 3DS, so they wanted to go a bit more upmarket with the Switch. I think the 3DS was great. I absolutely love it. But it kind of fell into the child-friendly market that most of Nintendo's previous consoles had, whereas the Switch, it's got a bit more mature. There are some more adult-orientated games on there, but they wanted to step away from the 3DS range, and I do get it, but it wouldn't have harmed them to include a DS cartridge slot on the Switch. Can you imagine popping a cartridge in, I don't know, Super Mario 64 DS or New Super Mario Bros. for the DS, popping it in the side of your Switch, tilting the Switch sideways and playing it that way. The touchscreen element of the DS has always been something that is going to hold it back from porting games across, but the Switch is a touchscreen. All they need to do is split the screen 50-50, or at least give you a portion along the bottom, and you could carry on playing DS games on the new current system, and it would just have made one mammoth console. It would have kept DS games going, it would have kept 3DS games going, and the ability to play these new Switch games. And at some point, I suppose I will buy a Switch. I'm more inclined to buy a Switch Lite because it's a successor to the 3DS, and it will be a sad day when I choose that as my main games console and leave my vast 3DS DS collection behind. So even if there was a third-party add-on that would include some capability of plugging in a DS cartridge into a Switch, it's just something that a lot of people have said it would have been a great idea. Nintendo don't care about the 3DS anymore. They're not selling any of the hardware anymore. That's all been discontinued. But they could have made a fortune out of game sales if they had just included a game cartridge slot on the Switch. Perhaps it's just the retro side of me. I've always loved older hardware, and maybe Nintendo didn't want to go down that route. They didn't want to half bring in a new console that could play the older ones, whereas bringing out this marvellous, wow, groundbreaking console, they wanted to distance themselves from the whole DS. They'd made the decision that the DS had had its day, and they didn't want to include the capability to play DS games, which is a real shame. So let me know what your thoughts are on it. Would you have loved to have seen a DS cartridge slot on a Switch, or were you not interested and just wouldn't have seen the point in it? Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.